Hello, 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 and welcome to this special episode of Hear Their Voices, the Icon Podcast. I'm your host, Priscilla Ozodo-Acevedo, and it's such a joy to be back here with you. I'm so excited, y'all, to introduce you to our guest today. But before we go on, some of you have received this podcast. Somebody sent it to you, or you've been following our guest, and he might have sent this to you. And you're wondering, who are these people and what is ICON? Well, I'll tell you. ICON is the International Committee on Nigeria, and we promote human dignity, the right to live, religious freedom, and the protection of all vulnerable from religious and ethnic persecution in Nigeria. And yes, this is all about Nigeria, okay? So if you love Nigeria, you are in the right place. And it's such a joy. It's been such an honor to host this podcast. And this season of the podcast, we've been looking into the situation in Nigeria with the lenses of hope. And we're talking around the topic of hope for Nigeria, ICON's vision for all Nigerians. And so I'm excited because our guest today is not a stranger to ICON, but he's also not a stranger to you. I'm one of the few people that got to know him through ICON because I'm not from here. I'm from Nigeria and I don't watch football, but y'all know that. But it's just such a joy to be here. Our guest today, as you must have known because you're here, is Benjamin Watson. And I'm so honored to be able to have this conversation with him. Benjamin Watson is an NFL legend. He's a family man, a notable activist and speaker. He takes being an athlete for change to new heights. He was a first-round draft pick and a Super Bowl champion, and he was a true talent and offensive force. Watson was he was an NFL legend, and he was a key playmaker for teams such as the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, New Orleans Saints, and the New England Patriots. Y'all, I'm just like mixing all these things because I don't know football, so just bear with me. With 547 receptions and over 6,000 yards in his career, Benjamin has been a model of consistency and talent through his 16 years in the league. Our guest's impact goes beyond the field. His uncanny ability to objectively address controversial topics in such an eloquent manner has placed him as a major television, has placed him on major TV networks, a dedicated father of 7 lovely children. He's a husband, and he constantly preaches his family values through his platform. He says the biggest game in life is parenting, and you can read more about that in his book. And Benjamin has always and will continue to take it upon himself to be part of the conversation, amplifying a message of positivity, progression, and faith. So, ICON family, you've had him around on the podcast, but join me for the first time on this particular podcast since I've been host. Join me to welcome Benjamin Watson to the studio. That's where the crowd goes wild. Yay!
Hey, you did a great job with the football stuff. I know that's not your forte, but I am thoroughly impressed.
Thank
you're
you.
leaning into that.
I'm not going to get a call from ESPN anytime soon.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's such a joy to be with you here. And I know I could go on and on and on and on and keep talking about the amazing things you've done. But most of our audience know you as an NFL tight end and as a Super Bowl champion and as a father, a promoter of the sanctity of life. But what do we not know about Benjamin Watson? Can you just get us behind the curtain a little bit and give us some?
Not know. I don't know how interesting this is, but I am pretty afraid of heights. Now, I'm not afraid of being in an airplane, but my wife and I just celebrated 16 years on our anniversary. We went to a place called Wyoming here in the States. Beautiful mountains, went whitewater rafting, hiking up mountains, and we went hot air ballooning. And this is a secret between us, but we were about 2,000 feet above the floor, above the ground, which we were already at about 6,000 feet or 6,500 feet elevation. And when we got about 2,000 feet in the hot air balloon, I almost passed out because I was scared to be that high in a hot air balloon. And so heights is kind of like my thing that I haven't talked about it a lot. Now everybody's gonna know, but
Everybody's gonna know.
yeah. My
Everybody.
wife had some water for me, and she kind of revived me while I was sitting there in the bottom of the basket on the hot air balloon.
That should have been on camera. That would have been a lovely footage to just throw in right now.
I know.
But thank you for sharing that. You've been an athlete who is also passionate about social justice and promotion of human dignity in the world. And parts of the media have, that popular phrase that we heard a few years ago, they've used that phrase, just shut up and dribble, right? And how were you able to elevate your voice above your sports and address like real issues happening around the world?
Yeah, well, the great thing is I'm not alone. And there are a number of athletes, not only in the United States, but around the world who are fathers, they're mothers, they pay taxes, they vote. We do all the same things that every other ordinary citizen does. Our profession just happens to be in athletics. And so the great thing when there's a statement like shut up and dribble, you can look at a history of athletes who have been activists. You can look at a history of athletes who have cared about things like faith, things about justice, things about simply doing what's right, being a parent, being a father, people who have spoken out. And so we have a very, very rich history of athletes not just shutting up and dribbling, of athletes doing their job, their occupation, whatever that may be in the sport, but also really caring about the communities that they've been placed in. Which some of these communities are places that you've never even lived. I mean, when I was drafted to New England to the Patriots back in 2004, I grew up in the South and then went to Boston. That became my home for that time while I was there. And the incredible thing with so many athletes is we're able to band together, but also now with the invention of social media, everybody has a voice, everybody has a platform. And so it's really encouraging to me just to see how other athletes have decided to use their voices and their platforms and be bold in talking about the things that they care about, but also not just preaching about it or teaching about it, but through many different organizations, many inspired by athletes, we've actually been walking out some of the work that we are claiming to care about. It's a very, very rich time, I think, in athletics when it comes to addressing some of these issues.
Yeah, that's awesome. That statement stood out to me because I was like, everybody does more than one thing. Exactly. So why target the athletes? What is your problem?
Well, the issue, Priscilla, I believe, we usually say shut up and dribble, or shut up and cook, or shut up and be a banker, or whatever it is, when we disagree with what that person is speaking about. So usually it's not really about the actual occupation that the subject is performing. It's about we don't care to hear about what you're talking about. So therefore, we want to subjugate you to simply doing what we are paying you to do. We usually don't hear that if someone is in agreement with what that athlete is talking about.
Wow. So how did you, a ball player, get connected with the story of Leah Sharibu and with the icon narrative, and how did this connection happen? Because when I heard about you connecting with icon, I was like, where did this come from?
It was definitely a God thing, and I feel so blessed, honestly, to be connected with icon and to be able to learn from icon about what's happening in Nigeria, but also the best way to voice out of respect and to advocate. And it's important whenever you speak out about something that you take the time to understand that these are real people. Things are multifaceted. It's on another continent. I don't understand. I'm not directly Nigerian, as far as ever lived there or anything like that. And so there are a lot of things that I don't understand. But I would say several years ago, I felt this. I would say as the Spirit was prompted me that, you know what, here in the United States, we collectively as a body of Christ need to understand what's happening to believers around the world. We need to be very, very aware, because heaven forbid, at sometimes the table will turn as we look through world history. And I would want someone on the other side of the ocean to advocate for us. If they had the ability to do so. And so from that point on, I started, looking into different organizations that supported persecuted Christians, fast forward, I saw the story about the Bring Back Our Girls, and then a little bit later, the story about Leah and hearing about her tremendous faith in the face of so much adversity. And I was connected through another organization that told me about Icon.
Yeah.
Spoke to the gentleman there, and we hit it off. And it was like, thank you, Lord, for providing a trusted resource for me to hear exactly about what's happening on the ground and how to properly advocate. So we've talked about it, written some things about it, had a phone call. I had an opportunity, a very, very brief opportunity on one of these last calls to actually speak to the family a little bit and kind of hear them and see them through kind of the patchy technology.
Yeah.
But it's been just very encouraging to hear, but also very, I would say, heavy when you think about exactly what she, her family, the community, the country is living with on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. We're so grateful for your voice. I know it's not just Icon. You're connected to IJM and some other networks that are really fighting for social justice around the country, and we're so grateful for your voice. So why is it important to you to use your platform as an ally? And you've answered this a little bit, but why Nigeria specifically? And just talk about just your place as an ally. You said a little bit about owning the fact that this is not your narrative. You're not Nigerian. I've never, you're not Benjamin Adebowale Watson, which I would love for you
although I would love for it to be that. Maybe it is. I want to find out, seriously.
I think you should. I think there'll be an Adebowale in your history, but that's not you. But why did it, you said you had that spiritual awakening, but why is it important for you in this season of your life, particularly with all of the other things that you're doing, to be an ally, not just supporting with, from afar, but really be a voice? You took time to speak with the family. Why is that important to you?
Well, Hebrews 13:3 talks about remembering the persecuted, and it talks about the fact that we are all one body. And for me, this is spiritual. For me, this is beyond doing something nice or humanitarian, although it's all of those things. But for me, this is, we mourn with those who mourn, and we hurt when other parts of the body hurt. And we must use our time, talent, our treasure, our voice in any way possible whenever someone is being mistreated, especially when there are some religious freedom type implications that are going on. And also we use what we have. And so for some people, they may have real estate. They may have different modes of supporting. For me, I had a microphone. I had a platform. I'm able to talk about these things. That we all use what we have. And so it was imperative for me to get involved, again, kind of going back to what I said before. And I also saw how the Lord placed in my way people who were experts on the topic and could advise me, and I could come beside them and really serve them.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get a little bit serious for a second. Not like I've not been serious, but just a little bit heavier of a topic. This past year for the average African American was heavy. And there's a lot of social justice issues going on here in the US. As an African American man who is very aware of all the inequalities that are happening here at home and facing, all the things you're facing as a minority man in America, why did you consider it important to be an ally? But more importantly, how did you is it two separate things to be, to still have a heart for what's going on here in the US? Because I've seen you talk about that situation and still be able to look beyond what's happening here to what's happening in another part of the world.
We're all called to different things. But justice is I have a friend that calls it a single garment. And so there are so many different issues that fall under the justice canopy. Whether that be sex trafficking or human trafficking, as you talked about with International Justice Mission and supporting them, whether it be the life of the preborn child, whether it be criminal justice and people that are being mistreated or sentenced longer for similar crimes as their white counterparts. poverty. These are all justice issues. And so for me, I don't differentiate, although I pour myself into different things at different times. But we're also able to do more than one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And so to me, when I look at from all that I've gathered and all that I've learned from reading the articles, from speaking to people on the ground, from learning from ICON, this is about justice and human dignity, what is happening in the northern part of Nigeria largely. This is about people not receiving their just due, whether that be punishment or protection. That's what justice is. This is about all governments. We want the mandate for a government, any government in any part of the world, in all mankind, all human time, is to punish wrongdoers and to protect those who are being targeted.
Yeah.
And so that's what I expect from the United States government. That's what I expect from Britain. That's what I expect from Brazil. That's what I expect from Nigeria. Yes, and I think that we can all expect that from our governments. And so I do see a connection, going back to your question about being very aware of what's happening here and what has happened here in the saga of descendants of American slavery here on U.S. soil. This has been a long story. These things have lasted for a long time. They have gotten tremendously better. But now there's kind of a reawakening of, okay, there's still some work left to do. And also, as we think about these people and wondering whatever my real last name is, not the name of my owner, there's a relation there between obviously the African American and the Native African. Not to say that I have to care about Nigeria because I'm African American. No, you can be of any ethnicity and care about any people in any part of the world. But I do see from a justice standpoint that it's difficult for me to turn a blind eye to one glaring issue of justice around the world if I know about it. And what's happening through the work of ICON and others, more people are hearing about what's happening. So the hope is that we can push people to lift their voices and to make it really unstoppable as far as change happening for people who are at risk and people who are vulnerable.
That's amazing that you say that, because I've heard so many fellow African Americans who say, why would I worry about that when we're still dealing with our own issues? And it's what you said. It's about justice for all, for all people. We're all created by the Lord. So let's talk about your family a little bit. You're a father of 7 lovely children, and I watched a video that you all caught I don't know how long ago now, and I was like, this is so adorable. But something that just stood out to me was it looks like your children are involved in your life, and very much you don't treat them much like, kids that don't know anything. They're very much involved in what you all do. How do you then communicate this hard work of social justice that you're doing to them?
Well, it has to be intentional, and intentional in 2 ways. It has to be intentional in that you actually spend the time to involve them and talk to them about what's happening domestically as well as internationally, but also intentional in how you speak to them, because they are still children. Our kids range from ages 12 down to identical twin boys that are 2. So we've got 7 kids in 10 years there. And so that their appetite and understanding is all different. But one thing we've always tried to do is to be truthful with them. Even during the last couple of years, when you've seen so many videos that have gone viral of police citizen altercations, usually a Black man that's unarmed being killed, you see protests and people crying and all these emotions that have happened. We've tried to walk with them through these things, always from a perspective of people are created in, as you mentioned before, in God's image. They all have value. I'm no better than anyone else because of who I am, where I'm from, what I look like. So we start there and then show them how sin has caused relationships to be altered and how people do things to others because of that. And so, but we're intentional in how we speak with them. But it's been, specifically when it comes to Leah, one story that was really encouraging to me. A little while ago, I was doing something for ICON, actually, and my daughter asked me what I was doing, and I told her about Leah and about the story. We had kind of talked about it before. We have a prayer wall in the house, and I wrote Nigeria on there. So it gave me an opportunity to talk to them about what was happening so that we could pray for people there. And then she asked about Leah. I printed out a sheet, like a 2-sheeter about her, handed it to my daughter, my 12-year-old, and she was able to understand and read about something that's happening to a girl that's a little bit older than her, but on the other side of the world. And so I think as parents, we just try to be intentional with including our children, as you said, because we've got to train them to be able to dissect and understand and see where God would have them to be involved with so many different issues of oppression and injustice that they will face.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for just the intentionality. And I just got chills because I was like, if every parent can be that intentional about getting their children to be aware about what's happening around the world, or aware about the things they're focusing on, how will our world be in the next generation of people who care about people who are completely different from them in another part of the world, but they have a heart for them. That's just absolutely beautiful. I just had to pause just to kind of comment on that. You're as a pro athlete, how would you encourage? And I wrote this down as other athletes, but just other people who are who get stuck in "this is not my fight," or get stuck in shut up and play, or shut up and cook, shut up and sing. I'm a singer. I've gotten, why do you talk so much before you sing? Just sing. And everybody gets stereotyped in who they're supposed to be. What is your call to action for them to say, no, you can do more than just be what your stereotype says you should do?
Yeah, well, one, don't be selfish. I mean, think about just thinking about my life. So many people have opened doors for me. I didn't do everything by myself. My pride tells me that I did, but the truth of the matter is I didn't do everything by myself. So number one, don't be selfish. Understand that your voice, your talent, your advocacy can help someone else that you may never ever meet. It may be something that pushes the needle further. Secondly, I would say understand the urgency. When we truly understand and through empathy that's one thing that we, even when we talk about racism in America and the Black America and what we've gone through in this country, for those who don't experience it, Dr. King talks about the fact that there's kind of this lackadaisicalness that things will just get better as they get better. But when you put yourself into someone else's shoes, as much as you can, like, I don't know what it's like to be under constant pressure of death or kidnapping, as some of the stories that I've read coming out of Nigeria. But if I try for a second to put myself there, I realize that there's a sense of urgency. This is not about let's sit here and wait and hope things get better, and they'll get better in time. If you can try to do something on a regular basis to help. Look, I'm not all powerful. I'm not God. I can't change everything. But what can you do? And then thirdly, I say this to athletes a lot, and I think a lot of us understand this, is that your window of time in athletics is very short, to where people want to hear from you just because you play sports. So at some point they'll want to hear from you because you are versed in what you're talking about. You may be a great communicator. You moved on to something else. But the life of a pro athlete is between their 20s and 30s. A lot of times there's very high visibility depending on how well you play and what team you play on. And so there's a draw to speak on a lot of different issues. I tell men and women that are young athletes to say, look, talk about things that you're passionate about, but also talk about things that you're willing to learn about. So that you can dig down deep, and it comes from a place of understanding, not just popularity or not just surface. And so, but understanding that window, and as you get older as an athlete, I mean, I played till I was 39. I'm 40 now. My last game was the beginning of the year I turned 40. Wow. And so the later you get in your career, you realize, man, I got to take advantage of this as much as I can. And so I would say to those athletes, or really to anybody who has that sort of transient platform, really to think about things that are important. And even in an issue like what's happening in Nigeria, to speak out, stand up. I mean, whether it's the persecution aspect of it, whether it's the religious freedom aspect of it, whether it's the common humanity aspect of it, the family piece, the government piece, humanitarian philanthropy piece. There are so many converging issues there that so many people, if they heard about it, I think would be willing to jump on board and serve where they could.
What will you say to people who say, I'm a nobody and I don't really have a platform, so I can't do anything? Like, they're like, you're an NFL player, like you got a platform. But we have a lot of our audience members that are like, oh, that's so sad. But what can I do? I'm just an average person. What would you say to that person?
The first thing is God many times prepares us in the dark for what we will do when we reach the light. And when we are responsible with a little, he seems to give us more. I'm not prosperity. I'm not trying to be prophetic. What I am saying is that you never know when your platform is going to change.
Yes, sir.
I mean, a young girl last night from Louisiana won the Scripps National Spelling Bee. First Black kid to ever do it.
Wow.
She is going to blow up right now overnight because she won the spelling bee. She also is an incredible basketball player. I mean, the girl's got Guinness Book of World Records and everything.
Wow.
But my point is that something can happen in your life where all of a sudden you have a huge platform for a certain time and then it goes away, or maybe it stays. And so whether your platform is the 100 people that you know at your job or the 5 people that are living in your house, because your family is where you change the world, number one. Or if it's 1 million people, you're responsible for what you have. And so God can use your fish and your loaves to multiply as long as you are committed. And if this is important to you, or if you think that it is, I would say use the time to research, lean into Icon, look online, hear stories, and educate yourself and tell others about it. Because the other thing is this. If I know 3 people, but one of those 3 people knows 1 million people, how many people do I really know?
Yep. Yes. Thank you so much. I've been ending the conversation with this question, and I'd like you to respond to this. The question is, do you think there's hope for the situation in Nigeria? And if there is hope, what is your hope for Nigeria? So you can respond with, my hope for Nigeria is, if you believe that there is hope for Nigeria.
Well, my hope for Nigeria is my hope for every country, every person on this planet, is that we live in a just society where people are taken care of, where they are honored for their human dignity, where they are protected, where they are allowed to flourish and to thrive. Where mothers and fathers and children can live to their utmost potential. That's my hope from Nigeria. That's my hope for the United States. That's my hope for every place in the world. And I do believe that there is hope. I know that it probably feels hopeless for many people, though. Yeah. And the reality is, as I'm getting reports that are delayed after things have already happened, I can't imagine the pain and the anguish that parents and children and communities are dealing with on a regular basis. And I would imagine that feels hopeless. But as we look throughout Scripture and we look throughout history, we know that things do come to an end. Yes. We don't ever know when, but our job is to pray. Our job is to advocate. Our job is to connect with others who are doing the work and try to serve in whatever way that we can until that time ends. So I do remain hopeful, but my hope is not exactly all in government, although that's part of it. My hope is in people like you, people like me, people like others who care about this, and that the Lord would shift it at some point in time. And if He doesn't, please know, anyone who is listening who is part of Leah's family or is in a similar situation as Leah, please know that around the world, even if you're, I want to be careful when I'm saying this, because even if your suffering does not end in a timely fashion, and we want it to, please know that people around the world are being strengthened and encouraged by your stand. it's not in vain. And I say that with the utmost respect and understanding that I can't imagine what's happening. But I do know that I've been encouraged, and so many others that I've talked to have just been, I guess, maybe convicted and encouraged and just equipped and energized to live not only for their faith, but to fight for things like, religious freedom, because they see your strength and what you've been doing under what by all accounts are the most terrible circumstances.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before I release you, I just want you to tell our audience where they can find your books. The documentary just came out,
Yeah.
Divided Hearts of America. Can you just direct us and where we can read this stuff and listen?
Yes. Our website is the Watson 7, all spelled out, the Watson SEV, and the Watson7.com. There's information on my books that I've written, Under Our Skin, as well as a New Dad's Playbook. If anybody is having a new baby, it's kind of a what to expect when she's expecting for guys. Our documentary, Divided Hearts of America, which is a look into the issue of human dignity for the preborn child. It's a series of interviews with people on both sides of the aisle, and how do we have these conversations. That's available on video on demand and download. So the Watson7.com is the best place. And then, of course, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you also have a podcast that I'm going to start
following. Thank you for reminding me. Why or Why Not with the Watsons? Why or Why Not with the Watsons is our podcast. My wife and I talk about issues like marriage, parenting, some of the things we've even talked about on this podcast. But it is she and I kind of going back and forth, talking about how do we live and love well? How do we teach our kids? What are some of the struggles and how we deal with, again, marriage, parenting, culture, faith, race, even philanthropy, all those sorts of things. Why or Why Not with the Watsons is available on wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Benjamin Watson. It's been an honor getting to just hear your perspective and your heart for human dignity. So have a blessed week, and I appreciate your time with us.
Thanks, Priscilla. Thank you.
Awesome. So audience, you heard it. You heard it from the tight end. I think I said it right. Football tight. You heard it from Benjamin Watson. There's always something you can do. If you share with your 5 friends, maybe one of those friends knows 1 million people. So if you didn't do this in the beginning, this is the time to take up your phone and click that share button. If this has blessed you in any way, if this has encouraged you in any way, pick up your phone, click share, and let's get the word out. And it's Benjamin Watson, y'all. You want to hear him talk, and you want your friends to hear him talk, okay? So that's all for now. It's been a joy hosting you here. And until next week, have a very blessed week.